says, let's go normal deal. You're buying it for $10 million. The NOI, want to calculate it, put it in. Let's say it's $1 million to an income, 5% vacancy, $500,000 in expenses. The NOI is $640,000. You call up your guru, 6.4 cap. Call up your guru, and the guru says, do not pay less than 7%. No problem. With cap rate, 7, offer only $9.1 million. Call the broker. If the broker says no to $9.1 million, do not continue. The broker starts talking to you, then it's worth doing the rest of the due diligence. Now you want to find out the closing costs, 3%, let's say is assumption. We are going to be adding here CapEx. When someone buys a building, they plan on doing renovations. CapEx is short for capital expenses. Once this is done, it shows you the total capitalization. How much money in total is needed to buy this deal? The purchase price plus the closing costs. Now we go to the loan amount. Either type it in, or you could type in 75% of the loan amount, or you can actually toggle it total capitalization. Sometimes you have a bank like construction will give you 75% of the total cost. In this case, of the purchase price. Let's say the interest rate is 6%. Let's say you think a 10-year term, amortization is 30 years. In many cases, it's interest only. First 2 years, let's say. So how do you calculate that? And then it continues amortization. No problem, hit 2. And now, while we're typing, it shows now you need $2.5 million worth of equity. Principal and interest, when you're paying the principal and interest, these are the payments. The debt service coverage is 1.3. During the interest only year, your payments are less because you're only paying interest only. That's the payment. The debt service coverage is much higher. Some banks will underwrite a deal, even though they're giving you interest only, based on the principal and interest. And some banks will give you interest only and say, I'll give you the debt service for interest only. But if there's a bank that says minimum debt service is 125, oh, this is good. We have enough buffer in here. We are going to be adding to the calculator soon. We could do max debt service. You could click here and say, what's the max I can borrow based on the bank's criteria? And you'll be able to update it live accordingly. Okay, that's on the deal. Now, I want to see my returns longer term. So let's go back to the first page. At the bottom, it shows you the first year net cash flow. What does the cash and cash return work out to? 8.9 first year. And the bank debt yield. It basically the bank debt yield is based on the NOI in relation to the bank. The loan they're giving, what's the debt yield? Banks have different criteria and buffers. Max debt yield, they're willing to lend you. Investment return. Now you say, hey, how long are you holding this building for? This part of it has been closed and hidden from every investor till now. And most brokers don't really know how to run these numbers in detail. Here's the summary of it. Easy at your fingertips. I plan on holding the deal for 7 years. Every year after this first year, I plan on growing the income by 3%. I plan on growing the expenses by 2%. We're going to stabilize and stay at 5% vacancy. Now, this is a calculated field, we'll calculate, but let's skip down here. When I sell the building, what cap rate am I going to sell it at? I bought a good deal. I bought this deal at a 7 cap now. I think when I sell it, I'll sell it for a 7 as well. Say people can argue it goes up, down. Let's for right now use the same number as 7. What are my closing costs at closing? 3%. Now, this calculator to me that based on these numbers, if I'm growing by 3% every year and 2% expenses, what's my net operating income growth going to grow every year? By 3.743%. By the time I sell the property, the NOI will be $827,000, which means after my sale, $11.8 million minus the closing costs, I'll have $11.4 million as my net proceeds. Unpaid mortgage balance, because it calculated amortization based on the whole loan, has $6.3 million. That means it's $5 million to distribute. So prior to the sale, over these 7 years, there's $1.7 million to distribute it. Plus, what we're doing now gives you a grand total distribution of $6.8 million. What does that work out to? It works out to an IRR, internal rate of return, of 17% on this transaction. And even if you don't know what IRR means, simply put, go back to the beginning and say, hey, what IRR do you need? This is 17%. I need 18. That means you got to find more ways to get income here or lower the expenses in order to make this work. ROI is the equivalent of if I bought this building without taking a mortgage. I bought this building all cash. I got these numbers. What is my return on investment? Yield on cost is taking all my costs that I have. It's a little more complicated. I don't want to go into it now. And average cash and cash is, what does it work out? You took all your return, you average it out. IRR is more scientific based on when you actually take the money out. So this shows you what the deal's up to. This next level, no one has access to. And that's what really opened the door. This calculator cost us to build, and we started with someone else's code that we licensed, over $1 million to build this calculator. So one of the pieces I wanted to show you back here for a second, which is part of that big expense, is right here. Most people have a deal, but they know, hey, I have a big bump 2 years from now in rent. It's 3% every year, but 2 years from now, it's a big bump. So in the projections, I could walk right in here, third year, just click on this number and say it's not going to be 3%, it's going to be 10%. And I close. It took that IRR to 22%. That's how easy it was to change these numbers. Now, partners are working on a split. So the GP sits down with the LP and says, hey, let's do a deal. The GP says, this is a home run of a deal. We're going to knock it out of the park. I want 30% of the upside. 25, I'm going to give you 25% of the upside. If it's a home run, you want to give me that much? I'll tell you what, let's make the following deal. From 0% until 8, I keep the money. I'm the LP. I get my full return. From 8 to 12, okay, it's a regular zone of a regular deal. I'll give you 20%. You get above 12, which is a home run because most people aren't getting it. Cash and cash above 12, you get a returns IRR above 12. On that piece alone only, then I'm willing to give like a waterfall. that hurdle, then I'll go 50-50 at that level. Once they make out this deal, now you can see on the side, equity needed, the GP's putting in this amount, based on the GP's return, because they're keeping the waterfall, they have an IRR of 43%. The LP's IRR is 17%. So now for the first time you see the full scope of the deal from the purchase price all the way down to the bottom. Let's say they're driving this out. I'm just curious, what would happen if tomorrow, right? Let's remember these numbers on this page, 22% IRR. What would happen if tomorrow, deal economics, tomorrow you get an offer, potentially you could take an 80% loan, but the rate's 6.25. Is it worth it? Very simple. Don't ask the question, is it or not? Just go look at the deal. What's better now? Now you look at the deal. Oh, the IRR goes up. Take it. Makes sense to you. Why not? The math is so simple now to see of how everything structures. And if you're the LP or GP, you could look here. What's better for you? Is it better for you? This split here is it worse for you? There's no more thinking as much. The numbers are right in front of you. You start with data. It's not opaque anymore. Now, this doesn't exist anywhere. Then they go to write up, summarize the whole deal. And soon you have ChatGPT summarize the neighborhood for you. Coming next week, we could share this. Click on the button here, share, and someone could open it on a generic page and then open it on their marketplace. They also have the ability, if they want to, save it to a property. If you're on a property, you start here, the calculator here, you go into the calculator, and then whatever changes you do, save to this property. So if I'm an investor, come back here. I say I'm not buying it anymore, put notes in. I come back in 6 months or 3 months, someone comes back to a deal. I see where I left off the last time. That's the beauty and the power of this calculator. Freaking amazing. That's what we have here.